Hello, everybody. Jason Sarney here. Hope everyone is enjoying their off season so far. We are beginning the process here in the NFL and Miami Dolphins world of the speculative season. We have our first kind of official scheduled item with the franchise tag kind of window opening. And we have one of the most credible, popular, awesome Dolphin content creators here with us, Douglie Do Wrong, who will be joining us right this second. How are you, Douglie? Awesome.
What is up, bud?
It's been a little while since we've chopped it up, but I'm glad that I have you here, and it's always a pleasure. And we're going to talk about coaching. We're going to talk about and start off by saying what you think about the coaching staff Mike McDaniel put together.
There's a loop, so I didn't hear what you said.
Talk to me about the coaching staff Mike McDaniel put together. Took care of the loop. Technical is over. But what do you think of the coaching staff for McDaniel?
I like what they've done, but I'm apprehensive to really jump into there and really rah because with Adam Gase, when we brought in Adam Gase, I was excited. Everyone was who worked with Peyton Manning, but it was more Peyton Manning than it was Adam Gase. And then we had Brian Flores, who did his thing in the with the Patriots in the Super Bowl, and then we were all happy about that. So I'm excited. I'm not going to say I'm not excited. I'm not going to say I don't like what he's done. I don't like who he's brought in, because he's brought in some really. I love the quarterback coach he brought in. I love that his offensive coordinator, his offensive and offensive line coach are huge into the offensive line. Love who he brought in, John Embry, a tight end coach. I love that he's bringing back Dolphin players, Surtain, Madison, Wes Welker. Absolutely love that. So I'm excited, but again, I'd rather be surprised than let down.
It's a good way of looking at it, but when you're dissecting each coach, you look at their experience. I do like that he basically has some continuity with Embry from San Francisco. The Wes Welker hire, wide receiver coach, is great because he's the Dolphin alum, plus the continuity with San Francisco. But let's take it back and start with the offensive coordinator and Frank Smith. And he, terrific amount of experience, 21 years. I think that's the typo, my bad. But he revolutionized really the running attack and the pass protection at his previous stop. And I think that he could only help the Dolphins' overall offense. What's your take on that hire?
Yeah, and I love that that's the direction that they're going with this offense, right? My biggest thing with Frank Smith is, he's a first-time offensive coordinator, which kind of worried me. I wanted Mike McDaniel to bring in at least one of the vets, right? I wanted the DC to be a vet, or I wanted the OC to be a vet. And I know people can say, well, Josh Boyer did it for 2 seasons. That's here nor there. We don't know what Josh Boyer did with the Dolphins. So I kind because I like the guys he coached with, like McVay and all those guys. McVay started with Wade Phillips as his defensive coordinator, had that head coach experience that could help. That's why I will eventually get to him, but I like that's who he brought in as the quarterback coach. But my biggest thing with Frank Smith is the work on the offense and the work on running the ball. It seems like the Dolphins are going to be very big into running the ball, whereas the past few years they have been really focused on passing. And it hurts when you're playing in certain games and you need to rely on the run. Like that Tennessee Titan game last year. Should not have forced Tua to, push the ball down the field 40. I think he threw it like 40-something times, whereas Ryan Tannehill threw it 18, give or take. And then next week they obviously go back to the run game and we beat the Patriots. But I like that's their MO is hard-nosed trench football. And that's going to win you games. That's going to win you championships. A lot of people want to say nowadays, it's a different NFL. Everyone's throwing it. Trenches still wins you championships. Look at this past Super Bowl. You had the Bengals, who had a horrible offensive line, going up against the Rams, who had a fantastic defensive line. That's what won the Rams that Super Bowl. Yeah, the offense scored, and yeah, the offense, got the points they needed to win. But that Rams defense is the reason that, Joe Burrow was consistently on the ground. So I'm liking that, Frank Smith is a trenches guy, and he's going to focus on that. So I'm very excited for that.
Likewise, and I think that when watching the Dolphins for years and years, the most nervous that I am usually is third and short, goal line. If it's first and goal at the 3, most teams really have a heck of a lot of confidence that they're going to punch it on in for 6. That hasn't been really the case with this running attack. The running backs, yes, you could put a lot on them. I mean, obviously the misses on Jordan Howard and Malcolm Brown, but now you have guys who did well, like Duke Johnson, like Philip Lindsay. Who knows if they're going to be back? But you put in the Frank Smith system, and you mentioned, quarterback coach, passing coordinator. Now Darrell Bevell comes in, and he has worked with Aaron Rodgers. He's worked with Russell Wilson. A lot of receivers have, talked very well about Bevell too in their development. Sometimes guys out of nowhere, like a Doug Baldwin, or a guy like a tricky kind of player like a Percy Harvin has had experience with him. So you look at a Lynn Bowden again. You look at a Jalen Waddle. What these coaches can do to maximize talent. Talk to me about what your thoughts on Bevell.
I love Bevel. I thought that was probably one of my favorite signings. Besides, all of us Dolphin fans love the Welker Madison Surtain signing. It just hit us in our heart. But Bevel, I think, is probably the best signing he's done. And that's saying something because, again, we talk about a ton of guys who are really going to help this squad out. But Bevel has that experience. He's had a little head coaching experience. He took over for teams that their head coaches got fired for a short stint. But it's the offensive coordinator experience. It's the running and offense experience. It's Brett Favre, Aaron Rodgers, Russell Wilson, working with quarterbacks that have shown that they can be good in the NFL under him. So it's all that experience that is making me excited, because as much as some fans don't want to hear this might be to his last shot. We're bringing in Mike McDaniels, and I might be jumping ahead on the topic, but we brought in Mike McDaniels, and I don't think we brought Mike McDaniels in for Tua. I think they brought Mike McDaniels in because of what they've seen him do, what he has said he could do, and all that stuff. So I think that this might be the last shot for Tua because of the fact that we have 2 first-round picks, and because it's like you don't get it by now, it's going to be very hard for you to get it and to click with it. So, I think bringing in Bevel can really also help steer that. Tua hasn't worked with Bevel. Tua worked with Charlie Fry. Tua worked with all these guys that they were, the Dolphins are trying to slowly push Tua in a right direction. He's never worked with Bevel. So Bevel has got fresh eyes, can see what Tua can do and can't do, and hopefully snap him out of that thing. Because the biggest thing with Tua, and again, I might be jumping ahead on subjects, but the biggest thing with Tua is he can make the throws that people want, and the throws that people are banging the table for. He can make them because we've seen him do it. We saw him do it against the Titans with that pass to Jalen Waddle. We saw him do it against the Ravens. Same thing, Jalen Waddle. Against the Jets, 3 passes, 2 to Ford and 1 to Parker, just drops it in the bucket. We've seen him pocket collapse on him, throw a dart to get a first down, throw a touchdown to Jalen Waddle in between 2 defenders. We've seen him make the throws. It's him being consistent on it. So having Bevel come in, fresh set of eyes, he can look at him and see, like, your mental clock is off with the offensive line, and where your footwork is off. Is it the hip? He can see that. So I'm just excited to be able to see what a fresh set of eyes on offense can do with this offense, and specifically Tua.
I agree with your point that it could very well be his last chance. I mean, look, he's going into year 3. He's got 4 years on the contract, with the Dolphins potentially wanting to pick up an option, but that is neither here nor there if he doesn't have a good year 3. Because if he doesn't have a good year 3, you really could eat whatever dead cap. If you get rid of him, you cut him, you trade him, what have you. Mm-hmm. But let's hope that's not the case, because I really truly believe that this team was and is constructed and being constructed to attempt to do the golden Kansas City Chiefs rule and win a Super Bowl with a rookie contract before having to spend the money. But you know what? If you win a Super Bowl, give Pat Mahomes whatever he wants. So same mindset. If Tua does in year 5, year 4, get the Dolphins to the Super Bowl, pay them whatever you want. But fact of the matter is, you're right. This is probably the last year to know if there's a future in Miami forever, or this is it. Now, another guy that is my favorite hire, and I know that everyone is just going to just understand why, is John Embry, who is not just the tight ends coach, he's the assistant head coach, which tells me, obviously, offensively, not only does he have McDaniel, the ear of Mike McDaniel, overall, and that's, I'm talking like, scheduling, maintenance of the team, all of the intangibles, but you're talking about a guy who has had Tony Gonzalez, Cameron Brate, Chris Cooley, George Kittle. Jordan Cameron was a Dolphin for a couple of seasons. He didn't have great years, but he had one Pro Bowl year in 2013. 80 catches, 900 some odd yards, 7 touchdowns. Who was the tight end coach? It was Embry. That was the only time he's sniffed anything close to a Pro Bowl, on the Cleveland Browns. Now, I'm not saying it was because of Embry, but when you kind of make, predictions, when I look at things, I like to connect the dots. Embry to Tony Gonzalez. He did not make Tony Gonzalez. Definitely not.
No.
But when he was with Kansas City, 2006, 2007, 2008, those last 2 years of Embry and Gonzalez, the only times in a back-to-back situation, Gonzalez had 90-plus catches and 1,000-plus yards. So there was 2 straight years of nearly 200 catches and 2,300 yards for Tony Gonzalez in the middle or back end of his career, certainly in Kansas City, and then he went to Atlanta. But fact is, Embry takes a look at what he has, and I truly think soaks up every ounce of talent. And if he sees something that he needs to fix, he is the guy to do it.
Yeah.
Now that segues into the next topic. I want to stick with the coaches, but that's where I'm going to really try to nail the Mike Gesicki situation. But we'll get into that. Let's go into your thoughts about Embry, and then we'll talk a little bit of offense.
Yeah, well,
Defense, sorry.
Hearing the things that Kittle had to say and seeing what he did with Kittle, love it. Love it. I think this was his first hire. I think John Embry was his first hire, and then I think Wes Welker was his second hire. So obviously there's that connection with him and John Embry, both running that, they were on the offense on the 49ers. So Embry knows what McDaniel wants, and McDaniel knows what Embry can do for him. So it's like that yin and yang. So, Bevel was my number one love of hiring. This was my number 2. I just really love what they can do, and I want to see what they can do with the tight ends.
And the thing is with George Kittle, he's obviously George Kittle, but a couple of years ago, he only played 8 games. And if you look at what his per game output was, it was insane. I mean, it was literally unbelievable. And if you take 60% of that, Mike Gesicki would have literally almost an all-pro year, but you're not talking about that much of a drop in talent. Look, George Kittle is the complete tight end. We get it. Mike Gesicki is not. But I do think, again, whether it's Hunter Long, whether it's Durham Smythe, the tight end room is going to be eaten well. Yep. And that's because of Embry. Wes Welker, another terrific hire. I think he's going to also help out in the kicking game. He was a return man. What do you think about that?
I think he's going to help out the most with getting yards after carry, and I think he's going to help out the most with the discipline with these wide receivers. I honestly think it's going to be a completely new wide receiver room. I think, Bowden, Waddle, and maybe Parker are the only, and I'm hoping Matt Collins. Those are the only 4 wide receivers that you might hear again. So I think there's going to be a lot of additions, maybe 2 to 3 wide receivers added. And I think Wes Welker is the type of coach that's going to be able to show them, the crisper route running, because it's, as much as people want to, put certain things on Tua and all that stuff, if you watch some of the route running, it's sloppy. And I'm not saying all the receivers, but I'm saying you notice that some of these out routes, some of these corner routes, there's a lot of curves to them. and those curves take off yardage and timing. So, I think Welker's going to come in and not only, like you said, help out the kick return and help these guys focus on which lane to hit and all that stuff, but discipline them, because with Albert Wilson, how many times did we see that man run backwards when he had a first down in front of him? So
at least 3 in key spots, like in key spots.
So I think he's gonna really teach them, because that was the thing Welker always did. He put his head down and he kind of just pushed forward to try to get that first down. So discipline and route running and just, I think he's gonna help, especially the slot guys, especially Waddle and Bowden. Oh, he's gonna help them drastically.
And you got to give. I mean, look, you can give Deebo Samuel the most credit for Deebo Samuel, but you could also compliment that with McDaniel, the usage. Wes Welker certainly has to be involved in that. I mean, this is also a guy that watched and coached DeAndre Hopkins in Houston, so just there's a lot of knowledge. He's watched Tom Brady. So I think Welker is just one of those guys that is going to be an extremely valuable bonus. You said yards after the catch, just icing on the cake to already terrific hires. And speaking of that, the defense, you mentioned Josh Boyer. There was a surprise when defensive backs coach Gerald Alexander was let go. But you know what? You traded that for 2 former Dolphin defensive backs, really, in Sam Madison and Pat Surtain. And I can't tell you, you and I have grown up in the same era. We're both kind of out-of-town Dolphin fans. And I know both of those guys are on your top 10 in favorites of all time. Same here. What they bring, in my mind, is the same kind of competition that Flores and Alexander kind of set up within that room, within that defensive backfield. But now I think that they're going to add a little bit more fun, swagger, and even more competition, because these guys actually finished 1 interception off in their Dolphin career. I think 1 Pro Bowl off. And that they were going back and forth, having fun with each other. So now you put that in the same room. Oh, man. Talk to me about your thoughts on Madison, Surtain, back in town.
Yeah, when Gerald Alexander didn't get the job with the Jaguars, I thought, all right, cool. Hopefully he comes back in some aspect. And then obviously they let him go. And I'm not going to speculate on why they let him go. It could be many different reasons. But I was like, all right, who can they bring in? Who are they going to bring in to help with the secondary? And then Sam Madison, some people forget that Sam Madison coached the Kansas City Chiefs for the past 3 years, especially their Super Bowl year. And he helped that secondary out a lot, especially the guys that they have over there. And then we find out that they bring in Surtain as the assistant and to also help him. That is going to help them working together, and them knowing how to play off each other is going to help the other corners learn how to pass off receivers. Because I noticed a lot last year in certain games, there was blown coverages because there was a lot of miscommunication between one corner and another. A lot of the motions would mess up the corners and stuff. Whereas now you have 2 guys who play together, 2 guys who have done it. They could tell them, listen, if there's a motion this way, this is how you're going to talk through it. If there's going to be crossing routes, you take the outside, you take the inside. You have to have that communication, because there's a ton of times where they would have those crossing routes, and the one on the outside that went to the sideline was wide open so many times, blown coverages. And like I said, there would be motions, and then all of a sudden Nick Needham or Coleman would bounce into the linebacker or get slipped up because he's not tracking him. So it's going to be very interesting, and I'm very excited to see how Madison and Surtain are going to work together now as coaches, not as teammates.
Development. I think that, you have the 2 guys that the Dolphins tried to build Xavier Howard and Byron Jones at, and now you got 2 of them coaching. It's beautiful, but I don't think they're going to be coaching those 2 necessarily. They're going to be developing Nick Needham. Needham is going to be staying. I am more than confident in the fact that he's a restricted free agent, so there would be a second-round tender pretty much on him, and I know that there's mutual interest. I would be literally shocked beyond belief if Needham is not back with the Dolphins. Long-term, I don't know, but he'll be back in one way, shape, or form. But Javon Holland, even though, these guys were cornerbacks, the way that they played was so fluid. It was so fundamentally perfect, where they made it look easy to play cornerback, where it's not.
Mhm.
And there would be times where they didn't even look at the ball. They just looked exactly the exact way a receiver would turn. And
Yep.
more often than not, Madison would just turn around and he'd pick the ball off blind, and I'm just really looking forward to seeing their coaching and seeing if it translates into, more sound coverage, less flags. I really am looking forward to that. And, this hiring season, I think, was an absolute slam dunk with assistance.
Mhm.
And I think that Mike McDaniel did a terrific job stacking the farm, with experience, a
Yeah.
lot of experience. So anything to close. And we miss Matt Applebaum. I mean, he doesn't have an offensive line, he doesn't have NFL experience, but I like the fact that he's a Boston College guy. There's a couple of good prospects
Mhm.
on the line that you get one of them, I'd be
He
thrilled.
took that Boston College offensive line from not too good to the second best in the whole nation. It's not even just the ACC or the Big Ten. The whole nation, he had the second best offensive line. So that is huge. And they kept, I can't even pronounce his name, but they kept our old offensive line coach, which I thought was interesting. But he's like all the way down there on the pecking order, which, not to knock him, but good. He needs to learn before he was thrusted into that position that Brian Flores put him in. He didn't deserve to be the offensive line coach. And, bringing in Applebaum, like I said, he took that Boston College offensive line and he turned it around. He made it really good, but he's not necessarily going to be doing this by himself
Right.
with Frank Clark there, which that's why I feel even better. And they'll be able to pick out the guys. I trust them more now to find offensive linemen that are going to work because, the offensive coordinator did it in San Diego, bringing in Lindsey and drafting the right offensive lineman to take that offensive lineman from horrible to one of the best in pass blocking in the league. So I'm excited. I'm very excited.
There's definitely excitement, and moving into from excitement to speculation. Today was the franchise tag kind of window opening, and the only two names that you're going to hear with the franchise tag potentially is either Mike Gesicki or Manuel Ogba.
Mhm.
Which one? Neither. What do you think?
I don't think Ogba is going to get franchise tagged. 17.5 million for him to play one season now.
Could even be 20. They were saying.
Yeah, this is the numbers I have are projected. It's not finalized. Mike Gesicki. I hope it doesn't get to that point. If they want to keep these guys, to me personally, I think they should have already re-signed them. I think they're taking too long in getting this done. But Mike Gesicki, you don't want it to get to that point. You don't want it to get to the point where he is like, nah, I'm going to test the free agent market and I want to see what I can get. Because for one, he's going to get what he wants and they're going to inflate, the numbers, and the Dolphins are going to laugh at it and say, all right, fine, we'll let you go. Because if it gets to that point, you're not franchise tagging him. And not because of the number, but because of what he's going to want. You're going to try to franchise tag him as a tight end, which is around 11 million. And he's going to laugh at you and say, no, I'm a wide receiver if you're going to franchise tag me, which is 18.5 million. It's a 7.5 million difference. And that's because he had 828 snaps last year. All 99 of them were in line. That's only 11% of his snaps. 453 were in the slot and 252 were out wide. So that's a combination of 85% of his snaps were essentially in wide receiver position. So if they franchise tag him, he's going to complain and he's probably going to fight to be a wide receiver and get that 18.5 million. So if the Dolphins want to keep Mike Gesicki, they need to get a contract done now because he knows that. He knows that, and he will make that a cause. So I don't know what they're waiting for.
You make a great point with where he lined up in terms of in line. Forget the blocking stuff.
Yeah.
Look, he's called the tight end, sure, but he plays more so, like you said, at a 90% clip, essentially a wide receiver XYZ situation.
Mm.
A lot of money, sure. if he is and the agent, it would be a solid business move to play him as a wide receiver if the franchise tag comes into play. What I've noticed is that there has been a kind of a social media habit of his to either be extremely silent or enjoyably cryptic. You know what I mean? And like, it depends on the medium. And it does seem that after the Flores firing, there was more excitement on his end to maybe say, does he want to stay? Now, I don't know if that is going to be mutually shared by the Dolphins. Now, yes, I know that McDaniel comes in and he has a running tight end blocking scheme system that does not fit Mike Gesicki per se. But to me, let's go back to Embry. Embry can basically, I think, mold Gesicki into not something different than what he is. When he has to block, I think Embry can teach him that when he has to block, he can block.
Yeah.
But the problem that the Dolphins had this past year was mismanagement of when they used him. All of his, not all, bad word, but the vast majority of his targets were in Dolphin territory, which is great to, move the ball, but you should use Gesicki in the red zone, not at a clip that the Dolphins did. In his career, it was 21 inside of the 10-yard line times he's been thrown to in his career.
Yeah.
And I think that's wrong. I don't care if he gets 10 less receptions if he's in a Mike McDaniel offense. 2 touchdowns last year is not going to cut it. This is a man who could score 7 to 10 touchdowns. If Matt Collins could score touchdowns at the clip that he did, I think he was scoring like a touchdown every 5 passes. You know what I mean? You're paying not for statistics. You're paying for when and where Gesicki could benefit your team. First downs, red zone for touchdowns.
Yeah.
And I do think he can get a lot of things in between.
Yeah. And, you hit the biggest thing is the John Embry. I think that probably enticed him even more. Some people even thought, like, did they bring in John Embry to kind of entice him? Did they bring in, all these guys that also not only worked on the offense, but worked with tight ends to entice him? Maybe. But it all predicates on, like you said, Mike McDaniel's system. You look at Mike McDaniel's system, you look at the zone running system that's potentially going to be installed with the Dolphins. Does Mike Gesicki fit in it? And if he doesn't, okay, well, are they willing to pay him what he wants to not be that type of tight end? To have Hunter Long, to have hopefully Durham Smythe, I want to bring back Durham Smythe, be that type of, okay, these guys are in the I formation or the single back formation, big wing, are going to be the hand down tight ends. But then it's back to the problem that we had where Gesicki's on the field, they're not running the ball. Gesicki's off the field, they're running the ball. It's very telling with him. So that's the big question is, can John Embry, evolve him into an all-around tight end like Kittle, like Kelsey, like all these big tight. That's what's holding Mike Gesicki back from being top 3 tight end in the NFL. It's a little thing. It's just that little bit of being the all-around tight end because he's right there. In my opinion, he's top 5. I think he's a top 5 tight end in the NFL. But like the Mark Andrews, the Kelsey, the Kittle, it's the blocking, it's the physicality, it's knowing where to go, what to do. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens with this situation. I will say this though, I wish he would unblock me from Twitter.
I'm lucky in that regard. I'm not gonna lie to you. Maybe once a week I check, and I'm like, oh, all right. I don't know. I've yet to have the wrath.
I did nothing.
You know what? I have no idea. I have no idea. It could be as
Call
simple
him up
as,
for me. I know you're best friends with him. Call
please,
him up.
not a chance. Not a chance. But I only hope that. See, to me, the funny thing is, it's very ironic with the whole blocking. I almost think it might be even like a joke. I mean,
Right.
He lays out more blocks on Twitter than anywhere else, but the fact that he doesn't need to do that.
Yeah.
It's like here's the example. Might be a bad example, but I'm going to cross sports here. Remember Ben Wallace?
Mm-hmm.
Remember Dennis Rodman?
Mm-hmm.
You paid them to rebound, and they were some of the best rebounders, and they didn't need to do anything everything else. And Rodman even had a stint with the Bulls where he would go to Vegas during the finals. And Phil Jackson was even asked about that, and he would even just say, he doesn't need to shoot around. He needs a rebound.
Yep.
My point is, if you have a player that has a specific skill set, that's what you're paying them for. You're not paying Gesicki to block. You're paying Hunter Long and hopefully Durham Smythe to block. They could benefit huge from Gesicki. And if Gesicki is not retained, watch what happens. If he's not retained, they're going to sign Dalton, or they're going to sign Schultz for $16 million, and everyone's going to be like, yes. And then why wouldn't you just spend the money on Gesicki? Whatever. But I think that it would be a good thing for Tua, good thing for continuity. And look at what Jalen Waddle, Gesicki, and Tua have kind of built together. It really is a triangle of who are you going to defend, where's he going to go?
Exactly.
And then you throw the Mike McDaniel scheme in there. So moving on to Agba, you don't think he's going to be franchise tagged? Neither do I. I've already made my piece. Drew Rosenhaus is his agent. He's going to get a ton of money. Miami probably will put a contract in front of him. But, hey, listen, I'd love to buy an awesome Mercedes for the price of a Camry, but they will laugh at me and say, go home. And I think that's what the Dolphins are going to do. They're going to put a lowball contract in front of Agba and say, how's about sticking with us? And they're already going to know the answer. It's not you, it's me. But that'll be the situation.
Yeah, he was dynamic. You know, he didn't get as much pressure and as many sacks as I'd like him to, especially not last year, but in 2020. But he was batting the ball down. He was still getting a ton of pressure. He was still getting there. But yeah, you're right. They're gonna offer him a contract in the production he gave the Dolphins, and he's gonna want a contract in the production he can give the Dolphins, and that's just not how it works. That's not, unless you consistently have given great production, then there's the thought process. Oh, it'll continue. But like you said, Drew Rosenhaus being his agent, I'd love to keep him. I think him and Jalen Phillips had a very good combination with the both of them, especially when they were on the same side of the field and they did that little stunt. But again, he'll get money somewhere else, but I don't think he'll get. I think what will happen is, like you said, they'll give him a contract. What do you think of this? It's too little. We're looking in this range, and the Dolphins will be like, all right, well, we'll keep working at this. He'll go test the free agent market, and they'll probably keep him on the phone.
Right.
We saw that you met with the Ravens. How much are the Ravens offering you? Oh, they're offering me about $1 million more than you offered me. All right, well, we can meet that. We can meet that. That's fine if you want to stay here. Because as much as people want to say that, oh, players want the money or players want the ring, a lot of players just don't feel like moving so much. It's a pain in the butt to consistently keep moving. That's another aspect. So we'll see. We'll see how it pans out. I'd love to keep Agba, but I don't think he's a top priority right now.
I agree. I think we're on the exact same page. And the Dolphins could be in a situation where if you let Agba walk, you don't franchise tag him. They could even get a compensation pick the following season. I don't think that could happen where you're franchise and trade him. That's going to be any better value. So I think Gesicki is tagged. I think Nick Needham is retained. I think Agba goes somewhere else. I'd like to see a multi-year deal for Matt Collins.
Yes, please. I think I wrote one down. I don't know where I put it.
I mean, it doesn't have to be a lot of money.
I think I had 2 years, $12 million. Give him about $6 million a year, give or take.
That's a good payday.
People underestimate how important he is to the team. Like, how many times did he down the ball on the 1 yard line, and then comes in and we need a first down, you throw it to Mac, he's going to catch it. Like, people underestimate how important Matt Collins is. So if they don't, I guarantee you he gets something like that somewhere else. Where watch him go to New England.
Ooh.
That would be such a Dolphin thing to happen.
Oh, that would be awful. But you know what? You're right. When you have a guy that could do two phases like he can do and be a fill-in wide receiver, because that's really what he is. He's a fill-in wide receiver, but he's an ace gunner. Like he really is just terrific at special teams. He's a leader. He's a captain. So if they get him that amount of money, I'd be thrilled. But that's really all we got right now. It's early in the off season. I know there's going to be a ton of other fun stuff as we get to the end of February and into March and then into draft season. And what is going on the Douglie Do Wrong channel? You are everywhere. You're doing a ton these days, of course. What's up with you?
Lots of off-season stuff. I'm going into free agency mode. So right now, I'm going to start looking at free agents as the Dolphins could potentially target who I'd want. Then after that, I go into, draft mode where I start talking about top 5 prospects in each position, even if the Dolphins don't need it. Then we got the draft, and I don't take time off when I probably should. I'm always doing something.
You don't sleep. You got the kid. You got the football channels. You do you, Doug. You keep on doing it, man. But we got to do this again. We should talk about the actual free agents, non-Dolphin free agents on a whole other show.
Yep.
But I'm going to be doing this a lot more. I love talking with you, so we could chop it up really anytime. Thank you for everybody listening out there. Just getting started with a lot of off-season content. So for Douglie Do Wrong, I'm Jason Sarney. Good night, everybody, and fins up.